Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
All right, Making Data Simple is back on the air, and I've got AJ Kulkarni. This is going to be a good one because I'm a data guy at the core. That's why we call it Making Data Simple. So I got AJ here, who is the CEO of Timescale. Now, let me give you a little lead in with AJ, and then AJ, I want you to you're going to take it and you're going to give us the real goods. Here's AJ. I mean, this is as far as I know. So he's the co-founder of Timescale, a company redefining how businesses manage real-time data at scale. He's got deep expertise in Timeseries database and IoT infrastructure. He partners with a ton of different customers, a ton of different innovators, and helps them navigate the data deluge, if you will, brought in by AI-driven automation and Industry 4.0. He's going to share with us today, or at least I'm going to hope he's going to share with us today, what's breaking, what's working, what's not working, what's evolving in the world of IoT. He's passionate about entrepreneurship. He's been involved with previous companies called SkySoft Pro, which was acquired by Microsoft. Look, he's got a great track record. Welcome, AJ. I appreciate you being here, taking your time out of your day.
Thank you for having me. By the way, the SkySoft thing on my LinkedIn is a little bit of a joke because what happened with my last company is that it was we were a startup that was acquired by another startup, which was then acquired by Skype, while Skype was being acquired by Microsoft. And these were 3 acquisitions that happened within a 6-month period, which is kind of funny. And a lot of stories there. But that's the thing there. I was at I guess.
Well, so do you make $1 billion out of that, or do you lose in all the transactions that happen?
I ended up with a GroupMe email address, a Skype corporate card, and a Microsoft benefits plan. So I think overall, I think that's pretty good. That sounds like winning.
How did you say that again? You ended up with this?
I ended up with a GroupMe email, a Skype corporate card, and a Microsoft benefits account. And so it was great. It's you get the mobility of agility of a startup with the benefits of Microsoft. I mean, it is kind of a win-win.
But you didn't stay with Microsoft.
I did not. In fact, I ended up leaving to start this company, which has now become Timescale, with my co-founder, Mike, who I've known since the first week of college. But I don't know. What's fun, Al, is I'm not sure if you know this, but we are just tomorrow going to change the name of the company. And we're announcing a name change, awesome. Not to reflect a change of identity, but to reflect the identity we've already become. So tomorrow, Timescale becomes TigerData. And what TigerData is we're building the fastest Postgres. What we found is that we started off in Timeseries. That's where the Timescale name comes from. But over time, we just started solving more and more problems for our customers. And those problems ended up, taking us from time series real-time analytics to now to agentic and vector workloads and AI, which we can talk about, and of course, transactional workloads. And what we realized is that, time series is maybe half of what we do. The other half is everything else. And so we are changing our name to reflect this new identity.
Nice. How long have you guys been around?
We've been around for 8 years. And at this point, we're up to 2,000 customers. Nice. Mid 8-digit ARR, a little more than doubling year over year. 200 people, 25 countries. Yeah, growing very quickly. 180 million raised from top investors, Benchmark, NEA, Tiger Global, Redpoint, Icon Ventures. And just getting started.
So you're the CEO. You were mentioning you started this or co-founded it with a college colleague. Is that right?
Mike and I met the first week of college. Yeah, first week of college.
Wow.
We were roommates. We both took the same classes at the same time, and he always got better grades than I did. Like, I did okay, but he always got better grades. And so, there are very few people who are smarter than you. And I know, he's smarter than me academically. And,
do you admit that, or just on this podcast?
I tell him every day. I don't know.
Oh, wow. So he's the CTO then, or what?
He's a CTO. He's also a professor of computer science at Princeton. Yeah, and also has a company. And no, he's a pretty accomplished guy. It was really around the time when I was resting investing at Microsoft. Mike had just gotten tenure at Princeton.
Resting investing.
Exactly. And Mike called me up, and Mike was like, "Hey, how happy are you at Microsoft?" And I know that question, and that question led to a business that has I think he would say too, has surpassed our wildest kind of imagination.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, how did you end up with the name Tiger?
Yeah, Tiger. So our mascot since day one has been a tiger since early 2017. And we picked the tiger because we wanted an animal that represented power and speed. And we kind of liked the alliteration between tiger and timescale. And plus, Mike and a lot of our early team had a Princeton connection. A lot of them were his former students and PhDs and postdocs from Princeton. So, and the Princeton mascot is a tiger. So I think we had kind of three reasons to pick tiger. So we picked the tiger. And over time, Tiger's become a kind of a core part of our identity. Our all hands, our Tiger time, our monthly business updates, our state of the Tiger. When someone new joins the company, we welcome a new Tiger Cub to the jungle. And so it was kind of a natural identity that we had. And so when we decided that we needed a name change, and we didn't really want to change our identity, we just wanted to change the name to reflect the identity. Tiger was just the obvious answer. And that's why we're becoming Tiger.
So so you've existed for 8 years. Are you venture funded or are you cash flow positive at this point?
We're venture funded. We raised 180 million in venture from top firms, Benchmark, NEA, Redpoint, Tiger, Icon. These are some of the same folks who backed Mongo and Databricks and Snowflake and other large companies, when they were our size. And one of the reasons they backed us is because they believe that we have the potential to become one of those companies, which obviously we agree with. Venture funded, and look, in our world, like the database business is a little bit of a winner take most market where there's some substantial scale effects. So in our mind, it was always go big or go home. And I think raising money from venture allowed us to.
So is that your job? Your job to raise the money?
Oh, I mean, it's a team effort. I mean, I think if we don't build a great product, if we don't bring on great customers, we don't keep those customers happy, then there's nothing to raise money for. So it's a team effort.
So I got to ask you this question. I'm a database guy at heart. I mean, that's why it's making data simple for the most part. Like I was telling you before we started the show, we've kind of got overbalanced on the AI side just because that's what a lot of people are interested in right now. So I'm keen on it. I know you're now expanding your database world and AI, as everybody would imagine. But look, time series. Let's talk about that for a second. Here's my question to you. Time series has been out for a while. In fact, I started, I don't want to date myself, but I'm going to here, with a company called Informix Software, which was a database company. And we were going head to head with Oracle at the time. And anyway, long story short, we've got acquired by IBM. But time series, well, we've had around since the 90s. I mean, for those of you that aren't database people, you should all be database people that are listening right now. But, it's essentially data indexed by time. Think IoT sensor readings, app metrics, financial ticks, whatever you want to say. But what made you start there and makes you differentiated in the time series? I know you've expanded beyond that now, but you started with time series. So give me the 2-minute pitch that you would have gave your investors as you started this company.
I mean, what's old is new again. No, I think the best way to build a company is to scratch your own itch and to solve a problem that you have. And so when we started this company, we didn't actually do like this big market analysis and look at the state of time series and all this. We just knew that we were actually working on another company. It was an IoT company. We were storing sensor data from over 100,000 devices, and we needed a place to store it. And the database at that time, they didn't make us happy. Either we could pick SQL databases that didn't scale, or we had to pick a NoSQL database that scaled, but you gave up kind of everything else: usability, reliability, interoperability. And we wanted a SQL database that would scale for time series. It didn't exist. And we built it. And we built it thinking it would take us maybe a month or two. It took us 12 months. But 12 months later, we actually had something that people started asking us about, and developer friends started asking us about. And that's when we realized that this database we built for ourselves was actually solving a larger problem that for some reason, and now we understand why, but back then all we knew was that for some reason, the market was craving a SQL database that scaled for time series. Now, in hindsight, it was pretty obvious because there were a few trends that we're capitalizing from, right? One is the rise of sensor data and IoT, right? The second is the rise of crypto and blockchain data. So it's similar to financial data, but different. And even now with AI, like we have customers storing like let's say a billion embeddings in one of our hypertables. And these embeddings are essentially ordered by time. They're like embeddings of news documents or maybe camera images. And these things have a time dimension. And, long story short, I think what we realized in hindsight is that time series ended up being growing from this niche problem to almost like an everything problem. And by building a time series database on Postgres, we were finally giving the market what they needed, which was just a reliable SQL database that did time series.
What is one of the use cases you started with? I mean, you said, hey, look, we had to scratch our own itch is the way you referred to it. What was the use case? I know it was connecting IoT sensor data over 100,000 devices, as you mentioned, but what's the use case behind it?
I'll give you a few. A month after we launched, we heard from an Italian utility, this individual who was managing, I think 47 power plants and managing the dashboards for its 47 power plants. It was all time series data. And he essentially had Redis powering the dashboards for speed. Now, the challenge with Redis is that it's a key value store. You can't actually do computations on it. You essentially have to like cache everything. And so he ended up replacing Redis with Timescale to power these dashboards. And mind you, this is a month after we launched. And I remember thinking like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because we're not sure you want to do this. It's a month in. And so that was one use case. Another use case soon afterwards is that we ended up working with the Bloomberg Terminal team. They had an application that was tracking geotemporal data and geospatial data with time for a shipping use case. That was then powered by us. They migrated to us, from Oracle. So again, a kind of real-time analytics, dashboarding. I'll give you one more that's a bit more modern. Lucid Motors uses us for semantic search on images. And they essentially store image data from the cars into, and this is an AI use case, an embedding format in one of our tables. And then they have essentially analytical workloads that analyze those images, for detecting semantic things like obstacles or street signs or whatever.
Why Postgres? Just a thing to do, but
okay. Why Postgres back then is because we liked Postgres. We liked
good as any.
We're like, hey, it's the only database we wanted to use. Turns out we were part of a much larger trend, and as a result, Postgres went from this, I would say, kind of niche database, this old school database, to today it has become the standard for transactional workloads. You can see this lately where it's the most loved database, I think, in consecutive Stack Overflow developer surveys. You can also see this in that both Neon and Snowflake acquired Postgres companies to get into OLTP. So you can see that it's become the standard.
So look, on the connected devices piece, to me, it's still early in inception. And IoT, it's amazing that may sound. I know there's a ton of connected devices. I still think it's early in inception, though. Now, what makes your solution unique to IoT? I get the Timeseries piece, but what makes it unique to an IoT solution?
Well, there are kind of two things at a high level. The first is performance at scale. And IoT data, sensor data, it comes across time. And so it has a very particular pattern that is insert heavy, not a lot of updates. When it does reads, the reads are not like point lookups, they're actually scans and maybe computations on those scans. And so it's not like your classic CRUD workload. It's actually a type of workload that we call an awesome workload, AUSM, append, update, scan, materialize. We haven't trademarked it yet. I don't know. I'm not sure of it, but the idea is a different type of workload. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. Now I have a ton of data, right? Like, hey, in the old days, 1 million rows was a lot. Now 1 billion rows is normal. 1 billion rows is normal. And you're like, how do I get that kind of scale in my database without paying a crazy performance cost or just financial cost? And the first thing we provide is that type of scale. And I can talk to you about how. And the second thing we do is we do this all within Postgres. So essentially it's the best of both worlds where you get the scale and performance of a NoSQL database with the reliability and usability of Postgres.
Have you ever heard of the database called or Netezza, the appliance solution?
Yeah. Yes.
How would it? I'm just curious of this because I'm here at IBM. I've actually led the development on Netezza. This is your show, not my. You're the guest. But how does it compare to something like Netezza?
Yeah, it's a different category. Like I would say, historically there've been two category databases. There've been the OLTP databases, and then there's been like the OLAP, more data warehouse type things. And unless I'm wrong, I believe Netezza was more of a data warehouse. And so data warehouse is great for like BI, analytics, kind of ad hoc jobs. While a database is what powers your operational application, operational dashboard, operational charts. And so for like a data warehouse, 10 seconds might be fast, but for a database, 2 seconds might be slow. So I think that is a big difference. Is just the kind of the query pattern, the basic category.
Anything else that you'd say in terms of like, hey, that 2-minute pitch? I want to go into, some where you're expanding into, like you talked about vector workloads and AI, and we'll go there next. But just at its core, why Tiger? Why Tiger database?
Yeah, a few things. First is we already have, I think, over 100 AI vector customers. So it's very much a thing we do. So larger workloads, and they're in the billions of embeddings. And again, this the fact that we're the fastest Postgres really helps here because AI workloads also need speed. It's not just time, just analytics.
Is there some? By the way, I got to interrupt you. Is there some place that says, "Hey, Tiger is the fastest Postgres"?
Yes. So TigerData, Tiger is the fastest Postgres, and we're the fastest Postgres for what we call modern workloads. So what's a modern workload? Back in the day, operational applications were just transactions. It was just OLTP, CRUD, simple lookups. And for those applications, speed wasn't that much of an issue. Maybe at scale, maybe some caching helps there. But what we found is that modern workloads are more than transactions. They're powering dashboards, they have analytics, they're dealing with a lot of data, for example, in the case of time series or crypto or gaming or autonomous vehicles. And then they're now incorporating some type of agentic quality, whether it's agentic access through MCP or whether it's powering agentic workloads like something like RAG. And what we found is all these applications need speed. And what we've always focused on as Tiger, even when we were at Timescale, was speed and performance. And in fact, we just published some benchmarks that show that how we're the fastest Postgres. But the key idea here is that the modern application is complex. It's transactional, it's analytical, it's agentic, and all these workloads need speed. And by the way, every developer wants Postgres. So being the fastest Postgres is, in my mind, a key position to provide developers the foundation they need to build these modern applications.
Is some of what you're talking about, those benchmarks, are they posted on your website?
Correct. Yeah, they're on our website. They should be on our blog. We can also put them in the show notes.
So look, now you're making the pivot as would be expected.
It's not a pivot.
AI.
Not a pivot. Don't call it a pivot.
All right.
Don't call it a pivot. That's the key thing. We've been doing AI for at least, I think a year and a half now, coming 2 years, essentially the end of maybe early 23.
We've been. So it was organic. It was an organic transition that you made.
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially, you know, what we realized is we looked in the mirror one day and we realized that we were doing a lot more than what our name communicated. That we were already the fastest Postgres, but our name.
So the pivot's in the name, not in the functionality.
It's a name. We're getting back to our roots. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So look, you're going to tell me you're one of the best databases then for vector workloads as well.
Well, here's the thing. Postgres has won as the database for vector workloads. It is one. It is the database that everyone uses. OpenAI uses, LangChain uses, a bunch of other folks that I'm forgetting right now. Postgres is one. And we provide the fastest Postgres. So if you're building an agentic application that isn't somehow, where speed is an important thing, maybe you're in production, that's us. We're the fastest Postgres.
I won't debate you on the fastest Postgres. This is your show. But let me ask you this. We were joking around earlier around AI, whether it's hype, where we're going and stuff. And, I know you've got a point of view here, and I'd like you to riff on it. Can you do it? Let's hear what you got to say about that whole framework.
AI is so funny. Like if I were, I live in San Francisco. If I were lived anywhere else in the world, I'd be like, what is this AI thing everyone keeps talking about? Why is there so much hype? I talked to some of my friends who are entrepreneurs in New York or Miami or Boston, and they're like, hey, like, is this thing here? And what's wild is living in San Francisco, it is so blatantly obvious that AI is not only here, but that it's everything. And as much as we talk about AI today, it's not enough. It's not enough because there's so much happening. It changes all the time. And in fact, I learned a new term today. It's called the overhang. The overhang is the capability of models versus what they're actually used for. There's still so much overhang. Where even the models don't get better for another 5 years, there's still so much we can do with it. And so it is a funny thing where we're definitely in a hype cycle, but it's so real. My investors tell me that they only look at AI companies these days. Some of my investors have been, in the industry for 25, 30 years, even, predating the dot-com boom. They say this is the biggest thing they've ever seen. And these are not people who are typically want for hyperbole. So yeah, my take on this is that it's real, it's here, it is changing very quickly. The pace of change is even hard for people like me to keep up with. But no, man, it's real.
Look, I may be biased. Of course, I'm in AI every day. I mean, are there people still asking whether it's real?
Yes. Well, here's the thing, right? Because I think a lot of people question whether some of the things people talk about are true or not, and you'll see this, someone will give a podcast, someone will do an interview and they'll say, oh, like, we're not really here, oh, like software, you can't really write software with code or with Gen AI. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's definitely a thing where you sense a little bit of fatigue that people have heard the term AI so often. But in my mind, I don't think we're talking about it enough because I don't know. There's so much to talk about.
Look, I was even listening to, what is it? Jeffrey
Hinton.
Probably know. Yeah, Hinton. Thank you. Supposed godfather. I think many godfathers of AI, but yep. Look, he's sending out warning shots, cautionary tales and everything else like that. I can't believe anybody out there is still debating whether it's here or not. I think, we're talking 5-10 years. If you're not at least using AI I don't think you'll cease to exist as a company anymore. I
Uh,
really think that's where we're at.
I mean, the crazy thing is that is just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the beginning. The thing I worry about is that a lot of our customers, a lot of companies I see in San Francisco, are like 3 to 20 person companies making 100 million or more in ARR. And it's just a new way of functioning. And so I have to ask myself, like, we were relatively new. We were founded 8 years ago, but we were founded pre the Chat GPT moment. Like we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
founded pre October 22. And there is a huge divide right now in tech between the companies founded before October 22 and the ones founded after. And the ones founded after, they look very different. And so, yes, it's like AI is part of your product, but it's also AI. Like, how do you live? How do you function? How does your company organize? Everything is changing, and that is the thing I think. I spend a lot of time thinking about is not just how does AI change the products we make, but how does it change the companies we build, and how do I make sure that my 200-person company is not inefficient in this world where you can do a lot with 20 people.
So if I'm listening, I'm a customer. I mean, I'm adopting AI, and I'm thinking, look, I've got to have a database. I want to use some form of RAG implementation. Why should I be thinking Tiger Database?
So number one, if you're
I
not
mean,
thinking if you're not thinking Postgres, you're picking the wrong technology. What are your other options,
okay.
right? Either you've picked, either you picked maybe you've picked like I don't know, like another vector database, a specialized vector database for your vector workloads, and then you're probably picking Postgres for your main workload. So now you have two databases when you just needed one. And so number one, you're picking Postgres, but we are the fastest Postgres. So at this point, if you're building a RAG application at scale and speed really matters to you, which I don't know, I think if you're building something that's customer facing in production, it should. That's where we come in. Now, how are we fast? I mean, there's a lot of innovations we've done in the past 8 years for Timeseries. Turns out that they work for vectors and embeddings, and I can go into them if you'd like. But that's the thing. It's like, look, if you're building a RAG application or an agent or whatever, use Postgres. And once you're using Postgres, use the fastest Postgres, and that's us.
But if I'm to do that, does that mean I have to migrate all my data to the Tiger Database? I mean, it sounds painful.
Well, first of all, most of our customers come to us from another Postgres offering, and because we look just like Postgres, there's very little migration. I mean, like you have to move the data over, but there's very little code changes, if any. Your SQL queries look the same, and that's one advantage of being 100% Postgres. Now, if you're coming from another database like MySQL or Mongo, there's a bit more work required. But again, this is the foundation for your product, which is really the foundation for your business. I think it's worth the effort to build your business on the right foundation.
So if Postgres, easy transition, still got to move the data. If it's not Postgres, a little bit more, but your case is, look, you got to be on Postgres. So one way or another, you're going to move the data. Might as well do it now. Might as well use our database.
That's right.
Okay.
We have customers who move over tens to hundreds of terabytes. Now, it's not easy, but it takes time. And of course, uptime, reliability are concerns that we obviously solve. But it's look, the developers know that your software is your business and your software is powered by a database. So you need to pick the right data.
Having said that, I mean, help me out here. I mean, how do you convince a client? I mean, I get there's a technology element and you feel like you have the best.
Can I tell you a fun fact?
Yeah, hit me.
Up until a year ago, we did not have a proper sales team.
So how do you sell?
All of our business was inbound. It was all inbound. It was all people signing up on our website, going through the trials on their own. We had a support team that was there to help them, but we had some account managers that they needed help. But we ended up with, we got pretty far along, up until like a year ago, right? Pretty far along without a proper sales team because of the fact that we were like solving a latent need in the market. So the challenge that actually we have isn't that it's hard to convince people. The challenge is people come in knowing that they want us, and we need to make sure that we actually set them up the right way. But it's a different thing.
Well, that begs the question: what made you transition to the sales team? You're just taking that next evolution of the company, or what?
We're leaving money on the table. I mean, it turns out that having relationships with your customers is a good thing.
I would imagine so. But
my CEO friends would say to me, they'd be like, Ajay, this is a new thing. You should consider it. It's called sales. Like, it's called selling. Have you thought about selling? No, I mean, Al, we were clearly leaving money on the table. We got all this growth, and you're on one hand, you're like, oh, this is amazing. We got this far on this totally efficient motion. But the flip side, it's like, wait, what if we had actually sold? Like, we'd be even further along.
I presume most of these are new startups or SMBs, or are you hitting enterprise as well?
Enterprise as well.
So, but if you're an enterprise, tell me what your methodology is then. Because if I come to you and I'm like, man, I got my database, maybe I'm using MySQL, maybe I'm using DB2, maybe I'm using Oracle, it doesn't matter. I'm like, seems like a major transition. I mean, what's your methodology to say, hey, look, we can compartmentalize this so that we can get something out of the gate quick, and then we can grow from there. I mean, I presume there's some element of that.
We don't have to do much of that. Now we're starting to because the sales team is trying to do some outbound. But when it comes to inbound, typically it's, hey, we already ran our POC. Timescale, now TigerData, it performed really well. We need help with the migration, and we need help maybe setting up these 2 or 3 advanced features.
What are those advanced features, by the way?
So there are a few, right? So our core feature is something we call hypertables, which are automatically partitioning tables across time and space. Then we have something we call hypercore, which is our own hybrid row columnar store. It stores recent data in a row-oriented format, historical data in a columnar format. You also get really high compression, like 90+% compression from that, and faster queries as a result. Continuous aggregates are real-time materialized views. And these are some of the things that, look, we're trying to make them more automatic out of the box. But if you can kind of set up the right way in the beginning, you'll get the best performance. So one thing we try to do is to really work with our customers so they're set up correctly out of the gate. And those are just some of our advanced features. There's a ton more, but the basic idea is that, if you need timescale, we'll make sure you're set up the right way.
All right, I got it. I got it. Look, sticking on the AI theme, I read a post from, I think it was April 2024, on real-time AI reshaping data architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And in that post, you said that AI-driven automation is pushing IoT infrastructure to a breaking point. What's breaking first, or what are you seeing breaking? How do you solve that?
Yeah, it's a good question. The industrial environment is really unique in the sense that, I'll talk to some of my customers and they'll tell me, look, a big part of what we do can never move to the cloud because it's on the shop floor or it's on an offshore rig or there's some regulatory reason it needs to be on site. So there's always going to be some data at the edge. And these machines generate a ton of data. And the question is then, how do you backhaul that data from the edge to the cloud? And then even in the cloud, how do you store it in a way that is kind of reliable and usable? And there are failure points every step along the way. The question is like, hey, when you have this data on the edge, how do you collect it in a reliable, scalable way? But then if you're deploying something agentic on the edge, how do you then deploy that? So I think it's a really interesting world because this is a part of the industry that's always kind of drowned in data. And, these are real use cases. We power, manufacturing companies, we power utilities, we power electric fleets of trucks and electric vehicles. And reliability is a concern. And as they're essentially building their architecture on top of the data they're collecting, they just want to make sure that it scales and it kind of keeps up with their needs.
Who are you helping with? You mentioned a little some of the clients that you were helping earlier. You referenced some of them, but you're helping companies like Polymarket, others drive or scale their real-time market. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Polymarket, Lucid Motors, Pump.fun. It's an NFT crypto company.
Pump.fun. Okay,
Pump.fun.
That's a new one on me.
Titan America they make cement. They make cement. Who else? The Financial Times. It's really a broad set of use cases. And the fact is that all this data is everywhere, and these trends that we're seeing are happening everywhere.
What do you think the future of it, of IoT is? Where are we at in the IoT? Are you still? Is that still your primary industry, or you say, hey, that's off the charts? You've talked a lot about IoT, and it makes sense in Timeseries, but it's only one small element.
No, IoT is still very much a core part of what we do. It is not. It is still less than 50% of our business. It's maybe a third of our business, but it's it's still a big part. IoT/industrial. I'd kind of lump those together. Of course, there's a lot of other things we also service. IoT, if you take away the term, right, and you think about machines, the thing we see is that these are not different trends. IoT is not a different trend than AI. That's not a different trend than crypto. It's not a different trend than e-commerce. They're all part of the same trend. And the same trend is that machines, computers, and humans are all blurring together. And machines used to be separate; they used to be disconnected, and now they're essentially coming online. They're becoming digitized, right? Human behavior used to be offline. Now most of what we do, our calls, our commerce, the content we consume is all online. So we're leaving digital footprint. Uh, Software is now becoming human, right, with LLMs, and so these lines are blurring. And as these lines blur, uh, that's where we're getting all these new use cases. It's a self-driving vehicle, is it IoT or is it AI? It's both, right? And a self-driving vehicle that actually talks to you, right? Like, what is that? So I think that the overall trend is that as these lines blur, our world just gets flooded in data, and I think that's why we're seeing all these great applications.
Are you doing a lot of autonomous vehicles today?
I'm not doing a lot. I would say we have a lot of customers who are in the autonomous space, in the electric vehicle space. This could be folks like in our customer base or community. We see Lucid, we see Toyota, we see Tesla. We have an electric lawnmower startup. We have multiple electric plane companies. I think we have a few electric boat companies, and so there is a ton of activity we're seeing there. Living in San Francisco, I'm surrounded by Waymos and kind of Zoox cars that are driving around. And so the way I explain to my kids who are young, well, I explain to them what Daddy does is I point to one of those cars and say, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you know how you have like eyes and ears? Well, those are called senses, and these cars have things called sensors, and these sensors collect information like your eyes and ears do, and then that data goes into a database like ours. And so that's a lot of what we do, but it is again, it's a great sign of how these lines are blurring. I
You
mean,
know what's funny is I was out there a month ago, and you're absolutely right. There's a Waymo like on every corner right now. It's really, I mean, for those of you listening and are not in the San Francisco area, I think there's a couple other locations, but Waymos. I mean, like these autonomous vehicles. That's another thing that's not in the future. I mean, it's here. They're on every corner. The question I have for you, AJ, are you a fan of the Waymo? I mean, it depends who I talk to in San Francisco. I think it was like a little bit polarizing. Half the people loved them, and half the people were like, "Hey, we had one get stuck and or yeah, stuck on a corner the other day, and they had to come and get it." But I think you're going to have some
I, I think
growing pains. But
I think at this point most people love them. I think a lot of the
yeah,
growing pains have been those kinks have been worked out. There's some
yeah,
challenges, but it is if you haven't ridden one, you should ride one. It is kind of a magical
yeah.
experience, and I know more companies are coming out with them, but it very much feels like the future. And look, like I think it is crazy that we have designed our cities and our country for cars and not for people. And I think the autonomous vehicle is the beginning of kind of rehumanizing our landscape. And so I think that's really cool. I welcome a world that is almost entirely pedestrian with maybe Waymo tracks. We're not going to get there, or automotive self-driving tracks. We're not going to get there tomorrow. But I think that's really compelling. I love the idea of like kind of a walkable city again and having those again in this country. I'm a fan. Not everyone is, but most people I talk to these days are.
Yeah, I'm sure you're in the tech industry. If you're like me, then you're a fan. But I think the other folks, like if I'm talking to the taxi cab driver, he's probably not going to be a fan because that's his business. I get it. It's kind
Yeah.
of how it goes.
This is look. I think it's a constant thing, right? The the hand weaver, right, didn't like the rise of the industrial revolution, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
In myself, like as a tech CEO, I'm constantly thinking like, how do I make sure that I stay relevant and I don't get replaced by someone who uses AI better or by AI? And look, I think these trends happen, and you can't fight them. I think you have to embrace them and really view them as opportunities to make something better.
I'm gonna not exactly switch gears on you, but I'm gonna ask a question back to IoT that my team wanted to ask you. All right, you said you were open for counter arguments or
Sure.
contrarian views. There's a contrarian. So you
Yeah.
talked about AI being. I mean, we talked a little bit about AI hype. What about IoT possibly being overhyped? Let me give you like some background to the question they wanted me to ask you. Look, research indicates that we're like at 403 terabytes of data being produced every day, something around there. That's pretty precise, but that's as of today. The question is that was asked is like it's kind of like we're taking temperature every moment, but to what end? Meaning, do we really need all these split second decisions in IoT and the constant streaming of data? Is real time always worth the cost? Where is IoT going, and is it really overhyped? That's the question.
I mean, what's the value of a safer car? What's the value in a more environmentally safe natural oil or gas pipeline? What's the value in a more efficient hospital system, healthcare system? Look, I think is data on its own the solution? No. data is neither good nor bad, right? But data is an opportunity. And where there's some IoT, are there some IoT use cases that are hyped? Yeah, probably. But that's focusing on the wrong thing. That's focusing on the half that's like half full or a third or half empty or a third empty or something, right? I think like you know what I mean, right? It's like
Yeah, listen.
you should look at the value of it, and I think like look like our customers, one of our customers uses TigerData to monitor methane emissions in real time for environmental protection. That's sensor data. Would you rather just have more methane in the environment? No, right? Like it's a thing, right? And so look, I think it is. What's the quote? Who said this? I think Patrick Collison from Stripe. I think he said, like, pessimists sound smart, but optimists end up being right. And so, yeah,
Pessimist being right. That's pretty good. I like that. I'll have to tweet that later.
yeah, and I think I think there's a lot of value. I think IoT is the one area where I feel like it's almost a no-brainer, because in these industries, like safety is one of the top things people worry about, whether human safety or environmental safety. And it's proven you can use data to actually help alert when unsafe situations occur and hopefully resolve them quickly. Now, do I mean, I have multiple like wearables right now. I've got a smart watch and I've got a Whoop. Now, is that helping? I don't know. It helps you sleep better at night, but okay, yeah, but you can debate that. But this is like on the edge.
Where can folks reach you and or TigerData? Is it just TigerData.com?
TigerData.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Ajay Kulkarni.
All right, fantastic. That's what we'll put in the show notes. What's the future of TigerData? Where are you going, man?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think what's interesting is the fact that we changed our name. That's not actually the big deal, but it's laying the groundwork for what's coming next. And so first, changing the name from Timescale to TigerData allows us to say, hey, look, we're now way more than just time series. Now we're the fastest Postgres. And in the upcoming weeks and months, we're building on top of that. We're building a new type of agentic Postgres. We're building a new storage layer in the cloud that allows for kind of zero cost forking and replicas. We're building a better way to integrate with the Lakehouse, as the database and Lakehouse blur together. We have some interesting announcements with Amazon. We have a scalable, other type of scalability improvements. There's a lot here, and I think building the fastest Postgres is really like a long-term mission, and we're every couple of weeks, every month, we are coming out with another big release that is going to push the ball meaningfully forward.
Wow, the future's bright, man. Sounds like you're just hitting your stride, huh?
Oh, we're just getting started.
All right, let me ask just a couple. You got a couple more minutes?
I do. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple of my favorite questions just to end. First one is what's true but nobody agrees with you on?
Oh, that one. Oh, man. What's true but nobody agrees with me on it? I think San Francisco is a great place to raise a family.
Nice. Are you downtown San Francisco? I mean,
well, we're in San Francisco proper, yeah, like in the city.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So here's the next one. This is a little tougher. This is the Warren Buffett question I've been asking lately, but I think it's a good indication of what you think is going on in the industry. So I know you're betting on TigerData already, and this isn't investment advice for everybody listening. So don't get confused. But you're investing in TigerData. You're all in. Got it. But let's put that aside. If you have to pick one database outside of TigerData that you have to invest all your money in for the next 20 years, which database is it going to be and why?
I'm going to give you something that's database adjacent.
Okay.
And I'm going to pick Anthropic.
Okay.
I think OpenAI gets a lot of the press, and I think they're much larger in terms of revenue. And I appreciate OpenAI. I use ChatGPT daily, and I love the work they're doing. Anthropic, I also use Claude daily, and the engineers on my team, they love Claude code. And I love the work that team is doing. It just feels so meaty and real. And especially with developers, the content they put out is it's so technically just like, it's so rich with insights. If I could, and I also think I think they're underappreciated because they're not OpenAI, but they're still like a 50, $60 billion whatever business. So I would put all my money in Anthropic.
All right, fair enough. No, that's all right. That's fair. That's adjacent, but it's fair. You skirted the database question, but that's okay. All right, what would you short then? So in other words, you got all your money, same question, everything you got, you're forced to short something for the next 20 years. What are you going to short?
In technology and databases, data adjacent, which one?
Whatever, however you want to answer it. I'll let you make the call. Because I know I'm catching you off guard, so it's all good.
So I'm going to pick one that's not my real answer, but I'm going to pick one that I think would be on my short list, and I think it's a really interesting answer.
Yeah.
I would short Apple.
Okay, see, this is why I asked this question. All right, yeah, hit me. It's an interesting answer.
I'm a big fan of Apple. Everything I have is an Apple product. My laptop, my headphones, my desktop, my earpods, at one point I had a watch, everything. I live and breathe in the Apple ecosystem. But I was a little underwhelmed by WWDC last week. I've also been underwhelmed by their kind of lack of real progress in AI. And I think AI is everything today. I don't know where Apple falls on this. And if there's one company of the top, 5 tech companies that I feel like has missed the ball so far, it's Apple. And, I don't know, it's a good team. And obviously I wouldn't really bet against them, but that's the company that I would be worried about, because right now they look like they are pretty far behind.
All right, this is the easiest question of the bunch. What do you do for fun, my friend?
Oh,
when
man,
you're not working all the time.
Okay, this is a real answer. I love to read business books, like books about tech. And I, when I was in my 20s, I would read these books for fun. And I was working on Wall Street, so I wasn't even working in tech. And my friends would make fun of me, like, "Hey, why are you working all the time?" And I'd say, "No, dude, this is what I do for fun. I started reading before I go to bed." Like, Why Machines Learn: The Elegant Math Behind Modern AI. It is a great book.
Oh, that's nice. Is it good? Oh, okay.
It's really good. It starts off really simple, but ramps really quickly. But the author does a fantastic job walking you through the math, starting off with like linear algebra and like matrix math, how we got to where we are today. And it's not the most accessible thing, but it's not like a textbook. It's still pretty accessible. But there are definitely parts of it that make my head hurt that we have to reread. Like, it kind of reminds me of like it reminds me of my undergrad classes at MIT, where I'm like, this make my head hurt. But it's really fascinating. And your guy Geoffrey Hinton actually is the top quote in the book, and he calls it a masterpiece. So there you go.
So I'm big into podcasts. I do the same, actually. So we got something in common there. The only thing is I mix it. I try to like rotate. I do business books. I do self-help. Like, believe it or not, I'm going back and I've never read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I'm reading that right now.
Are you into Stoicism?
I'm into everything, man. I like to read everything. That's the thing. I get a little bit from every little piece. So what do you got on that? What do you want to?
Oh, I hold on. I love Stoicism. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I follow philosophy. What's a good book? So Ryan Holiday, he's a famous author. He does all these TikToks on Stoicism. He has a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way." The obstacle is the way.
Wow.
And the idea
that's on the list too now.
The obstacle is not the thing in your way. It is your way. It is your thing. And it talks a lot about how overcoming these things is actually the reason to be. And I don't know. It's really good. All his books are really good. There's another one called "Ego is the Enemy." You probably sense a theme in his titles, right? Obstacles, ego is the enemy. There's a third one which I'm forgetting. No, but they're all really good.
Provide you a few that I've been reading. I think Amp It Up was fantastic. If you want a good business book,
yeah,
that's Snowflake.
It's on my list.
Yeah, that's great. I thought it was really good.
Did you read his
first Titan? What's that?
Did you read his
first?
No,
I didn't. What was the first one?
Tape Sucks. Tape Sucks.
No, I haven't read it.
It's about his time at Data Domain. It's super short, but it's one of my favorite business books because it's right to the point. And from people who know Frank, I don't know Frank, people who know Frank tell me that it's just like him. It's like straight to the point, really short. Tape Sucks.
It's on the list too. That's fantastic. I read the 6 Types of Working Genius. That was really good.
That's a good one.
The Jolt Effect, just how to sell. Since you're starting to sell, I really thought that was, I like the Challenger Sell. So I think this was the same authors of the Challenger Sell, the Jolt Effect. And then, there's always like, I'm reading Nexus. I just haven't finished it yet because it's so long, by Yuval Noah Harari. I like all his books, but I stopped it, paused it, I put it down, and now I'm picking it back up again to finish it. It's all good. I just got to switch things. My mind, is crazy.
Have you tried Blinkist?
Yes, I have done Blinkist for a while.
You didn't like it?
I did like it. I mean, it wasn't bad, but then I didn't. You know what? I was getting in the habit of just reading Blinkist, and I'm like, no, and I stopped it. I did it for like a year, and then I paused it because I want to read the whole book, because you miss something. Like, I'll tell you one reason I stopped it. It was kind of because I was telling my team, some of the books that I'm reading, and they said, "Oh, just do Blinkist for that." I said, "Yeah, but you can't. You got to read the book too. You can do Blinkist if you want, but you're missing out on some of the major pieces if you don't read a full book." And they're like, oh, no, you just do Blinkist. I'm all right. I'm even done with Blinkist because I'm going to read the whole book. Anyway.
I treat Blinkist like movie trailers. Like I'll skim the blink. And if I like it, then I'll read the book. But most of the time I'm like, I got the point. Don't need to read the book.
I guess you're right. And what I typically do, I kind of do the opposite. When I read the book, I like to do a summary.
Yeah.
I've got like a file that I keep. It's called an ideation file.
That's great.
Where I take the best learnings. And so I try to take notes in the book, but that becomes cumbersome. So then a lot of times I'll go back and I'll read the summary of the book. And then, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, this is good. Oh, and I remember it's not even in the summary. I'm going to put this in. So then I have like the best of quotes, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So I'm not against it. I just paused it for a bit because I was using it too much and my team was talking about it. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Anyway, but it is good. I'll have to, now you make me think about it. Maybe I have to redo my subscription. I'll have to think.
I'll send you my referral code.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Great discussion.
All
right. Hey, everybody listening, hit us on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. We love you. We'll get anybody on that you'd like to hear about. As always, that's how we got my good friend AJ on as well. Until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye.